Welcome back. It's Business Morning on Channels Television. Don't forget to be part of today's conversation. Join the discussion on all our Twitter handles at Biz Morning, at Channels TV, at Harriet Agbenyi, or you can also send us an email. Send it to businessmorning@channelstv.com. Now, with the change of guards at state levels expected on May 29th, of course, the elections come up on Saturday, the state of the state government is now on our radar. Well, the Chief Executive Officer Budget, Seun Onigbinde, joins me now in the studio to talk more about it. Good morning, Seun, and thank you so much for coming in.
Good morning, Nara. It's nice being here again.
Interesting times for the states. Now, we've had this conversation before, but we had it mostly for the federal and a little bit for the states. But we're focusing on the states now today. Now, a lot of states, or most states, or should I say some states, want an executive and majority of the House of Assembly from the same party. Do you think this promotes good governance, checks and transparency?
Yeah, for most times, the state House of Assemblies have not been up to their functions. Number one, they don't have financial autonomy like the National Assembly has, meaning they still wait for the state governor to disburse funds to them. And that also already creates a line, a very difficult line in terms of making sure that they get their funds when they are due. For example, the National Assembly is under the statutory transfer, so it's a first-line deduction for them. But for the state government, and it's part of the issues in the amendment of the Constitution to make sure that they become they get these first-line charges themselves. So for long, it's been like they have been like appendages of state governors, and the governor wants to exercise that kind of control in terms of getting things to be speedily passed and also getting results. So every governor would fancy a dominated House of Assembly that is from his own party. And don't forget the bandwagon effect also, that the governorship election and the state House of Assembly elections are holding on the same day. So the patterns will definitely not swing. You might possibly still get state regions where people will still possibly still vote the same person for the governor and the same person for the state House of Assembly. You have found that in the last general elections, the last presidential elections, wherever you find people having two senator-elects, the presidential candidates want that kind of area. So it clearly shows the bandwagon effect in the politics. People just press their thumbs on the same party along line. So we will not see swing. I don't think we will see that situation where the party and the governor differs, except in states in which maybe the governor is not up for contest. For example, in Edo, which the PDP showed a strong showing in the last presidential election, or states like maybe Ekiti that is becoming like a thug of war now, so a theater of war. So the possibility for most states that are having the presidential and state House of Assembly go in the same direction. Does it help accountability? It does not matter, because sometimes you find out that when the political class sometimes looks like they are one and the same, when they get into that space, you find it hard to really drive in reforms, or to think everybody's going to show up.
Yeah, but Sherman, let me just cut you here, because, let's take it from the national level. Yeah. Remember that at a time when we had to pass the budget, when they had to pass the budget, there were issues of, because you're from this party, you're from that party, factions beginning to come up. And it's also played out sometimes at the state level as well. So, going forward and ensuring that, because this is kind of like a transition period. Yeah. Of course, we have so many reforms that are already on ground, and so many others that will definitely be coming up. So, looking at it in that, in that light, should the focus now really be on encouraging, having the same party at the executive and still also majority at the House of Assembly?
Yeah, it will be the politicians will fancy it, and I think irrespective of who dominates the House, basically, it doesn't mostly matter. Now it depends on the man management skills of the governor to make sure that he manages them very well. For example, in Ibadan, Oyo State, for a certain period, the State House of Assembly split was roughly split between APC, Accord Party, and PDP. And he has been able to quietly manage that without rancor and get his things done. So sometimes it boils down to the key person who is leading the party. Now he can be able to manage those spaces. And the State House of Assembly needs to be more stronger. We've found that I think one of the key problems is the financial independence is not there. And also mostly we're not checking the quality of people that we are putting in those spaces. I'm happy that, I don't know, maybe Desmond Elliott is coming up. I don't know if he's going to win, but people need to show more interest in State House of Assembly, and so that it doesn't just become the party speak and people just go there and we are all worried about the governor and we care less about the state of assembly, because they're critical in terms of constituency projects. For example, you live in Bariga, and the constituency project that's supposed to be delivered in your area, or project that's supposed to be delivered in your area, if it doesn't get done, the first person you should knock his door is the State House of Assembly member representing that area. Go to his office, get across to talk to him, and so that he can talk to the governor. He can ensure that when the budget is brought by the governor, he can include those projects and say, the people of my area dearly or seriously needs this project. But we've neglected that duty, and it has just been maybe representation and just doing, just ticking the boxes.
So what if, for instance, the House of House of Assembly member now is from a different party from the governor, and an individual, a resident in that particular area, comes up with this kind of challenge and says, look, I need to have this done in this area, we need to have this done in this area, we need this in this community and the rest of it. Well, there's a probability that since they are from the different parties, it might not engender what we are going to call socio-economic development for that particular kind of area. So we might have rancors coming up as well. Yeah,
there'll be rancors. There are always rancors. But like I always say, it's more of the leadership of the government that will matter. There'll be rancors because there's something that I think it was the president, one of his debates, that was there was something that he was going to call legislative authority. He wanted to lord it over him, because sometimes there's that tension between the executive and the legislative part of you can only just not lord things over me. I'm the executive of it. So the question will always be there. But I think if we get a state, the party wants it because it wants to get things speedily done. If the people say this is what they want, irrespective of who is there, the key work will always be being back to the citizens themselves, accountability. If it's a PDP there, if it's an APC there, would you continue to be rigorous in scrutinizing them and demanding the best from them? But sometimes, like I said, when you get, like for example, we've been talking about National Assembly salaries for years, that you can justify 150 billion naira budget allocation in that space. It's higher than most state budgets in Nigeria. And irrespective of people being APC, PDP, APGA, Labour Party, or whatever party, nobody has stood up and taken that as like his own canticle of faith to say this issue, these allowances are too high, or where is even the transparency in those are found. So when it comes to those gatherings, the political class looks more like one and the same to me. When it comes to those pieces, the key question is, will the citizens hold their own people accountable? And then, like I said, the bandwagon effect will clearly show. You might definitely not see states, except in like places like Edo or places like Ondo, where APC won, where despite the state governor was a PDP member, so you might expect such things to happen. So you have to manage that effectively. And also like states like Edo. But states like Lagos or where possibly you are seeing the swing to be that of a single political party that's taken strides in the past, in the last election. You might still say it doesn't, and they would love it because it speeds the work. Most of the things can be discussed in caucus meetings. And sometimes, for example, in the National Assembly, it gets more complex. You might think some issues would be divided across party lines, but you find that some issues get divided across ethnic lines. For example, the child not bride, the clause in the national constitution, there was all our advocacy about child not bride. If you look at the voting pattern, it was not more about this party voted for this or this party voted for this. It was about ethnicity. So sometimes when you get to that space, this looks a bit more different, and more of it, citizens have to be more vigilant, and also how the governor or the president, the executive can manage that space.
And you were talking, and you mentioned the budgets, and that's where we're going to be taking off from this. Notice that a number of state governments actually allocated more funds to capital projects and less to recurrent. Even budget actually put together, some data. Unfortunately, we can't have it on TV at the moment, but we noticed that in spite of that, having more allocation for capital projects and less for recurrent, it hasn't translated to improved infrastructure. But what's your view on this?
Yeah, most state government budgets, to be honest, are very bogus, and basically sometimes it looks to me very unrealistic. And I say this with a sense of decency or humility, because you look at their finances, most 80% of their revenue comes from FAR allocation. Except states like Lagos and Kano that have shown strong showings in terms of raising revenue allocation, internal generated revenue. Even Ogun has also done well in recent times. And so why would you, on average basis, get like 5 billion naira? I'm talking about non-oil producers. They get 5 billion naira on a monthly basis from the federal government, which translates to 60 billion naira. And you're doing the IGR of not less than $1 billion in a month. Let's say you do $1 billion. So you look at your entire revenue, you might not do more than 72 billion naira. Then you go ahead and quote a budget of 150 billion naira. and you won't borrow much because there's so much, you have already been indebted a lot. So sometimes when you look at the maths, it doesn't strongly add up. It doesn't add up because most of and at the end of the day, the thing that is always quickly spent is the recurrent part of the expenditure. Salaries will be paid. Government will run its machineries. The cars will be fueled. They would run from one point to another. The political patronages will be there, and the overheads will keep being there. The debt services will have to be paid. So by the time you cater for that part, most of them are even first-time deduct charges. So you find that almost little or nothing is there for the capital infrastructure, and most of them now, that's when you find them going to borrow or go ahead to go to the bond market and saying, okay, we want to go ahead and borrow, and so you can do the capital. So I've always seen because the data in that space is dark, you can't even see it. You can't even clearly say this is the performance of the budget in most state governments. So you can't really say how.
Why do we have darkness, with regards to that? Is it that we do not have an efficient way of, checking how the monies are spent?
Yeah, number one first thing is the legislation. Even for the federal government that makes its budget more open, does more budget implementation report, there's a Fiscal Responsibility Act that mandates them to do so. So they are definitely, and unfortunately, most state governors did not domesticate that. It's one of the curious advocacy of budgets going forward. Say, why do we have more transparency at the federal level? And why else most state governors just run their finances in secrecy? Because you can't see the detailed budget. All you hear is a budget speech, and you can't see the detailed budget. You hardly get it. And you can't even see the budget performance report. And you can't even see the audit report of most state governors. So for you even to conjure numbers and say this is it and this is it, it's pretty in the dark hole. So more of the questions have to go in. How do you get more transparency in the states? How do you make this a standard rule? And this is party agnostic. It means it's not even a PC or PDP thing. It's just that most state governors, fair to Edo State. Edo State is doing an open government program with the World Bank, and also being fair to Lagos State, because Lagos State also tried. The budget is reasonably transparent to a point. They submit their audit report. There's a quarterly budget implementation report. But apart from you take out those two states.
Take out the two states out of the 36, including the FCT.
Every FCT, you can hardly see all the finances. You can hardly see anything. The only thing you have to rely on maybe one statistic from the MBS, which is top level statistics that can't really help you in making a decision.
Now, you talked about, the fact that we've seen increased borrowings, and of course we know that with falling oil prices, FAC allocations to states are declining and, will continue in the next couple of days. But what options do the states, have to increase revenue, especially since we're having a new administration on May 29th?
Yeah, to be said, when I look at some state governors' campaign, I say, it takes a bold man want to lead in this era, because the plan of increasing your high GR, it's not a short-term plan. It starts with something very, very strategic. Because in the end, what you want to do is you want to take up taxes from that space. And so if you want to take taxes from that space, you need businesses to thrive. You need to be very strategic. Which business are you bringing in? And one of the things like states like Ogun State has learned from is to look at the proximity to Lagos and tapped into that efficiency. So you have the Ota axis, the Agbara axis, the Lagos-Ibadan Express axis, and you have them very, very more careful. Even those that even work in Lagos, for someone that works in VI and lives in possibly Ota, or if works in Ikeja and lives in Ifo, they have made sure that such people pay taxes to where they reside, which is according to the law. Most of state government has to really think about what are their strengths. Is it mining? Is it agriculture? How do you really sit down and look at your strengths as a state, and how are you going to make sure that maybe they exist in informal structures? Maybe, for example, you have agriculture, you have a large agricultural produce. I ask questions like, okay, for example, an Osun State, for instance, it's less than 300 kilometers from Lagos. And so why can't the entire Osun State be the one feeding the entire Lagos State population, have a massive agricultural produce coming from that space, and being able to tax that effectively and bring that to the market in a more packaged and a more formal way here. So we need to really sit down and think through how you are going to improve it. But it's not a short-term plan. You need to look at which sectors are going to work for you.
So when we come back, we'll continue the conversation from which angles, especially how the markets can contribute to helping the state governments grow. So Sheol, hold on to your thoughts. The conversation with Sheol Onigbinde continues after this break. Stay with us.